Well, people, the suit and I are back. But this time, we are here to do not the worst of the year, because good God, I've had enough of talking about bad movies. This time, we're here to talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. Part 2 of the 2 end of the year, end of 2017 suit videos. And they are my best of the year. The films that I had the absolute, not necessarily the best time with, but the films that intrigued me. The films that I got something just completely new out of. The films that gave me something that just the year of 2017 as a whole just could not do. So without further ado, we are going to get into my top 10 best movies of 2017. And I really need to rephrase that because the whole best and worst thing, it's all bullshit. Let's face it. Because film is subjective. And when we talk about the best films and the worst films, we're just talking about the films that we liked and disliked the most. Why can't we just say that? Get rid of all this best of, worst of, higher power bullshit. And just say our favorite movies and our least favorite movies. So without further ado, these are my top 10 favorite movies of 2017. But first, of course, the honorable mentions.
Talk about this to anyone ever. You understand?
You two tell everyone you're my boyfriend.
What is this? Why are you acting like this? You don't even like these people.
I do like them. Is everything okay?
Yeah, everything's dope.
When is a normal time to have sex?
You're having sex?
I'm ready. Just wanted it to be special.
Why? You're gonna have so much unspecial sex in your life.
We hand over the hard drives.
You've seen what's on those hard drives. Families, lives, careers will be ruined.
Why are you in this alone? Where are the people you're protecting by not telling the whole story?
I'll tell them everything they want to know about me. About me.
23 identities live in Kevin's body. Who are you?
Yeah, sure do. $38 a night.
Okay, I warned you. One drip and you're out.
Oh, come on!
I'm sorry about Angela, but the town is dead set against these billboards.
You know who threw that can?
What can?
How about you, sweetheart?
No, I didn't really.
Go, girl.
Hey, fuckhead!
What?
Don't say what, Dixon, when she comes in calling you a fuckhead.
Land the backup, Jane. This is a land of you're on your own.
Oh my God.
Do not start this war. But I will finish it.
Number 10. Phantom Thread. So kicking off this list, we have Paul Thomas Anderson, this time tackling the world of 50s fashion in the form of Daniel Day-Lewis portraying Reynolds Woodcock. Yes, that's right, his name is Reynolds Woodcock. He is a dressmaker who falls in love with a waitress and pandemonium ensues. The thing that I really appreciated about this film is the fact that it wasn't your typical dysfunctional relationship. It really was an exploration into the mind of a person who clearly is not that mentally stable and just the types of connections that he attempts to form, but really he doesn't want, even though he thinks he does. The performances in this movie are of course powerhouse because again, it is Daniel Day-Lewis, but Paul Thomas Anderson really is the star here because the way that he moves his camera, the way that he designs these shots, the way that he entrances you into a different decade, like he is introducing you to a new world, that is something that very, very few people, even some of the auteurs that we have today, can really do. And with that, Phantom Thread makes its spot here at my number 10. Number 9. Get out! From the sick and twisted mind of Jordan Peele comes the movie about black people being abducted by white people and having their brains extracted. Sorry if I low-key just spoiled the movie, but that is actually what happens. And somehow Jordan Peele manages to turn that into a better metaphor for racism in today's world than I have ever seen before. Daniel Kaluuya is dating Allison Williams, big big mistake there, dating one of the co-stars of Girls, and goes with her to meet her parents, played by Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener. And it soon becomes apparent that not everything there is as it seems, as he soon learns from his best friend, I don't remember what his name was, played by Lil Rel Howery, that a bunch of brothers have gone missing around that area. And he soon learns the horrifying truth when Catherine Keener hypnotizes him by tapping a teaspoon on a cup of tea. That is actually something that happens in the movie. And people are wondering why this is a comedy. Seriously though, I saw this movie back in February and it is still held up a couple months later. This film was friggin' spectacular. Just the amount of clever nuances that are introduced in this movie that you really don't notice at first, but that play in later on, it is amazing to me. And I love the way that this movie ended. I heard about the alternative ending that Jordan Peele was gonna go with, and I'm so glad that he did not go with that. The thing that this movie did really well is it perfectly balanced that sense of lunacy with just how dark and terrifying and creepy it is, because by making the premise just bizarrely outlandish as you can possibly get, you really were able to exploit some of the more deep-rooted fears that people didn't think of. This movie just commented and just exposed some of the things that white people typically do when interacting with black people that they wouldn't necessarily even find offensive at first, just commenting on things that they say. And who better to tackle it than one of the two amazing minds behind Key and Peele, one of the most clever comedy duos we've gotten in the past decade. So with all of that being said, Get Out makes its spot here at my number 9. Number 8. The Lego Batman movie. Another one of the movies that helped kick this year off with a smash. And I immediately had no interest in seeing any other animated movie that followed it up because that's how good this movie was. Oh man, as a fan of both the Lego movie and a mega Batman fan, this movie just hit on all friggin' cylinders. It was a hilarious comedy. It was completely meta. It had some of the most amazing fourth wall break jokes that I've seen since 22 Jump Street, and just also capitalizing on some super deep human Batman moments that I never would have expected to be seen in a Lego movie. That was brilliant. I mean, all the jokes obviously hit, and it was amazing how the movie was able to throw almost 24 jokes at you before the movie even friggin' started. But it was all the little quiet moments where you just saw Batman sitting in his cave that really made you understand just how lonely this guy is in a way that no other live-action Batman movie has even seen, even in The Dark Knight, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. The voice casting is phenomenal. Will Arnett, of course, knocks it out of the park again as Batman, but all the supporting players come to play, particularly with Michael Cera as Robin and Zach Galifianakis as the Joker. I love how Galifianakis and Arnett's back and forth just plays into a whole new angle with Batman and the Joker that you've never seen before, and works so great both comedically and dramatically.
Greatest enemy. Superman is my greatest enemy.
Superman's not a bad guy.
Then I'd say that I don't currently have a bad guy. I am fighting a few different people.
That still gets me every time. It's an amazing joke. That and the fact that this movie literally dives into every single absolutely ridiculous villain that Batman has ever faced off against in every single iteration of his character. And the movie even goes so far as to comment, come on, those guys can't be real. But nope, Kahneman King is an actual bad guy that Batman once faced off against. I really wish more people were talking about this movie in the way that they were talking about Coco, because it really is one of the best movies we've gotten. Not just animated movies, but just best movies we've gotten in this decade and this year. So the Lego Batman movie makes its spot here at my number 8. Number 7. The Big Sick. Talk about a movie that's gonna punch you in the gut and leave you laughing and crying all at the same time. Another comedian who proves that he has got a ton of dramatic chops that he's capable of. Kumail Nanjiani, who wrote this movie with his wife, Emily V. Gordon, in order to chronicle the tale of them meeting, followed by her falling into a medically induced coma, which forced Kumail to form this really incredible and amazing bond with her parents, who in the movie are played extraordinarily by Ray Romano and Holly Hunter. Now, Holly Hunter is getting a bunch of awards talk, and rightfully so. She's spectacular in the movie, but the one who got me the most was Ray Romano. Just from seeing the type of work that this guy's given in the past and how he was able to fold that into this just beautifully damaged character. And his back and forth with Kumail is some of the best back and forth I've seen all year. And the fact that this movie works so well as a love story when one half of the love of the couple is completely out of commission for most of the movie, that just goes to show you how great this movie is at selling you on this couple. Because if you think about it, the movie literally has to get you invested 100% in them being a couple so that you can feel what he is feeling when she goes into that coma, so that by the time she comes out and they end up getting together in the end, you're on board and you say, yes. Well, this movie nails it, and it ends up allowing this to be one of the most touching romantic comedies and funniest comedies. Like, this movie does have some legitimately hilarious moments in it. I love that scene when the guy just completely calls Kumail like a terrorist on stage, and then Holly Hunter like completely bashes him, and then the guy like calls her a cunt or something, and then Ray Romano just like tries to yell at the guy just in the completely most like whitest, pussiest way possible, but it ends up being one of the funniest scenes in the movie. But yeah, this was a movie that I really didn't have that much expectation going into, and I ended up leaving just like a changed person, because this movie, like, I've seen a decent amount of rom-coms. It's not my favorite genre. I'm upfront about that. I don't like rom-coms because they do follow a lot of the cliches, and I just don't find them relatable, because a lot of them just don't follow what being in love is in real life. And this movie, oh man, there was just something about it that was just so tender and sweet. So that's why The Big Sick makes its spot right here at my number 7. Number 6. Baby Driver. So Edgar Wright returned after a 4-year hiatus and completely smashed into theaters with one of the best movies of the summer, easily. In an action heist comedy that sees Ansel Elgort playing a getaway driver with tinnitus who works for this big boss played by Kevin Spacey, who is just so much more intimidating now that I know that he's a pedophile in real life. But after he falls in love, he has to outwit the group of criminals that he's with, played by a very scary Jamie Foxx and John Hamm, in order to get away. Despite the fact that this movie doesn't necessarily have all the types of layers that a couple of the other movies on this list and then just came out this year in general had, this movie was still, it was nice to see a movie that could just be absolute fun and have just a ton of action and comedy in it and still be a great movie, because we don't get a lot of those these days. The performances and the writing were absolutely top-notch. I really appreciated how Ansel Elgort was able to sell so much of his character through such a physical performance, especially for a guy who the primary bulk of his career has been young adult garbage. And all the thugs he had to deal with, they really came to play and showed through just regular over-the-topness like Jamie Foxx, or through a lot of subtlety that ended up playing into just making their characters as crazy as possible later on, like John Hamm. They all had those little parts of that Edgar Wright just so perfectly incorporated into making this as zany and awesome as possible. The editing for this movie was quite possibly some of the best editing I've seen for this entire year. He was able to incorporate, to perfectly sync beats of a song with John Hamm shooting a gun at the cops. That's how on point this editing was. Yeah, just a really fun, really great, really awesome, really refreshing movie in this genre. All the Kevin Spacey stuff aside, although that one line.
He's been boosting cars since he was old enough to see over the dash. He stole my Mercedes. Had a lot of merch in it. I watched him do it too. I didn't stop him though, because I was just blinded by the balls on that kid.
That line was improvised, right? Please tell me that line was improvised.
No, because I was just blinded by the balls on that kid. Balls on that kid. Balls on that kid.
But yeah, Baby Driver. Awesome. Number 6. Number 5. I, Tonya, a movie that I am really glad Ryan Murphy did not make the next season of American Crime Story. This movie was one of the darkest movies of the year, but simultaneously one of the funniest movies of the year. This movie had bits of comedy that managed to surpass Baby Driver for me in terms of just how outlandish and spectacularly ridiculous it could get. What this movie does so brilliantly is it dives into all the different facets, characters, and just actual events that went in surrounding the whole Nancy Kerrigan incident, and Tonya's actual involvement in it and how much she actually knew about it, and then completely flips that on its head and makes you question just exactly what the movie is telling you. The way the movie makes it out to be, Tonya supposedly knew nothing about it, but was that really the case? Performances all around top-notch. Margot Robbie and Allison Janney, both spectacular. Also completely unexpectedly amazing performances from Sebastian Stan and Paul Walter Hauser. I don't think anything in 2017 said damaged more than I, Tonya did, but did it in just the best way possible. So that's why it makes its spot here at my number 5. Number 4. Good Time. No, shut that off. Not that good time. This good time. The good time that involves being such a fucking idiot you take your retarded brother on a bank heist, and then when he gets arrested, you have to spend the rest of the night getting $10,000 to get his ass out of prison before he dies. That good time. And who knew that Robert Pattinson could play a greasy street urchin and give one of the best performances of the year? Shovelface from Twilight himself? But seriously, the thing that I love about this movie is it takes just an unlikable guy who just sucks at everything and tosses it into a scenario that just progressively gets worse and worse and worse throughout the night. And despite the fact that, if you really think about it, a lot of the scenarios scenarios are just so outlandish, it's comedic. The movie presents it in just such a dark and effed up way. It also utilizes a style of filming that I haven't seen before. It mixes the type of gritty street crime that you would see with something like Taxi Driver, but it blends it with more modern day and realistic 21st century themes, and I love that. Probably the thing that sells Robert Pattinson's performance and his character the most is the fact of this guy, besides just being not a good dude, is just able to so smoothly manipulate just everybody that he is involved with. Even the guys who you think are more menacing than him, like Buddy Dures's character, you really end up feeling actually bad for anybody that gets close to this guy, because he's managed just to ruin several people's lives throughout the course of one night, so much so that by the end of it, he just realizes that he's just doing nothing right and ends up having to turn himself in order to actually make things right. And when one of the directors of the movie manages to portray a character who is arguably gives a better mentally challenged performance as a mentally challenged character than DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, that should already tell you the amount of talent that is going into this movie. So yeah, Good Time, my number 4. Number 3. Brigsby Bear. A movie that made me interested based on the bizarre premise alone, and was also one of the few movies that had me coming out of the theater pumping my fist and cheering at the end. That should already tell you the type of movie that Brigsby Bear is. This movie basically manages to take the premise of Room and turn it into a comedy that is somehow even darker than what actually happened in Room, which I didn't even know that was possible. And then manages to go one step further and turn it into an even more endearing tale about following your dreams and just pursuing it against all odds, against everybody that is telling you no. And this film was written and directed by a guy who's done segments of Saturday Night Live, starring a guy who is primarily known for Saturday Night Live, and produced by The Lonely Island. Kyle Mooney brings this amazingly incredible innocence to this role that, despite that never makes his character feel ungenuine, because there are a lot of opportunities where his character could just come off as like an absolute creep, but he really doesn't. Just everything that he says, every emotion that he feels, every single awkward thing that comes out of his mouth feels perfectly understandable and amazingly genuine. And probably what makes him the most endearing is the fact of, despite the fact that everybody does kind of think he's weird at first, it's how he progressively manages to get each and every single character throughout the movie to go with him on this madcap quest to introduce the world to Brigsby, but not in a way that feels childish or corny in any way. That just goes to show you the type of specialty that comes from this movie. So much so that even when the world around him literally has to place physical barriers around him, he still manages to make them feel like total idiots by saying, no, why are you doing this? It's one thing when a film tells you to follow your dreams in a cool way, but when a film manages to tell you that exact same thing in a cool, fun, creative way that's also simultaneously heartfelt and super endearing, that's when you know you have a special kind of a film on your hands. So that's why Brigsby Bear makes its spot here at my number 3. Number 2. The Disaster Artist. Hi, YouTube. You've all heard my movie. You all know about it. You all know about The Room. Yeah, it's a good movie. I thought it was good. Then this guy Franco, he comes along and he makes it terrible. He makes me look like a real human being. I don't care about being a human being. I want to make film about life, and this guy Franco, he makes it out for me like I'm a joke or something. Is what I thought was gonna happen when I saw the first couple trailers for this movie. But after seeing this movie, James Franco takes an idea for a great sketch and manages to make a movie about one of the strangest human beings to ever walk this earth, and manages to make him come across as a genuinely creative and very bizarrely misunderstood human being. And while The Disaster Artist may not answer a lot of the deeper questions that people may have about Tommy Wiseau, the film still does a fairly spectacular job of just introducing you to this guy and seeing what it was like to walk through him each and every single day on the set of that disaster of a movie. When people ask about The Disaster Artist, they ask, oh, do I need to see The Room beforehand? And my answer to that is only if you want to, because The Disaster Artist is not about the making of The Room. The making of The Room is a part of The Disaster Artist, but what The Disaster Artist is about this crazy, insane friendship that developed between the two most unlikeliest of people. And James and Dave Franco do such a great job of bringing that to life. And just learning and understanding just everything that he did in the making of this movie that made it go as terrible as it possibly could. It was fascinating to watch. Not to make fun of him, but just to understand him. And then, of course, to laugh at all the ridiculousness and hilarity that ensued, because when watching him recreate those amazingly terrible scenes from The Room, that's just something so special. And it really sucks that all the allegation stuff is coming up against Franco now, although I still do think that Ali Sheedy tweet seemed very, very planned, because come on, she sends the tweet out the minute he's up on stage accepting the award. Give me a fucking break. And despite the fact that I did originally have this at number 1, I ended up changing my mind at the last minute, only because, again, this is my top 10. These are the best films of the year. There's gonna be some changes depending on how I think and feel about a movie when I see it versus a couple months later versus now. So without further ado, and my number 1 selection is Logan. Man, people just keep bitching about the superhero genre and how it refuses to change. Cough. Marvel. Man, all these superhero movies are too funny. All these superhero movies all feel like it's just generic villains and punching CG graphics in the face. Cough. Marvel. And then in comes Fox to piss all over that with arguably one of the best gritty, grounded in reality, and one of the most beautiful send-offs I've ever seen. Not to necessarily just a comic book superhero, but just to a character. Because that's what Logan is first and foremost. It's not a superhero movie, even though it does have elements of westerns in it. It is about this character, first and foremost. And for the first time in his 7-year run as the character, Hugh Jackman really managed to tap into just all that pain and misery and baggage that Logan has been carrying around with him for his 200-year-long run. Watching this film and walking out of this movie, even now, almost a year later, I am still reeling from just the type of emotion that this film made me feel. Maybe it is just because I have a stronger emotional connection to this character than I have with any of the other characters that have been in scenarios like this before, but there is just this sense of raw potential that James Mangold manages to tap into within the world of comic books that I feel no comic book director has done in over 2 decades, in that he manages to create this beautiful mythology all in a piece that is supposed to be a demythologization of our idea of superhero. Because one of the things that this film does so well is playing around with your perception of who you think these people are, and it's one of the things that I feel like Watchmen did brilliantly, and that it really just shows you that these guys in the end are just human beings that just have a lot more shit to deal with. And when your whole public persona just completely gets flipped on its head and you end up at rock bottom with nothing, only add to that 200 years of fighting and wars being experimented on, and God only knows everything else that Wolverine has been through, you're gonna get this. It's not all fun and roses at the end. It's coughing, it's pus oozing out, it's you slowly dying and withering away and having to deal with your legacy and what you truly did for the world. And that is something that not just Logan has to deal with this movie, but it's something that also Patrick Stewart's Professor X has to deal with this movie, as we see this once great mentor, this rock that the X-Men had, wither away to this husk who his powers are now basically a curse, because every time he tries to use them, he has these spaz out fits that cause everybody within a 100-mile radius to just freeze up and not be able to move or breathe. It's tragic, but it's beautiful at the same time, because seeing them on this one last hoorah to protect this little girl that we end up finding out is Wolverine's clone, seeing them on this one last mission to try and reclaim just a little bit of those superheroics that they were once famous for. There was just something about that I have not been able to find in any other superhero movie this year. Fuck, not just superhero movie, just any movie this year. Obviously, the violence was going to be great, but the thing that really sets this type of violence apart from any other type of gritty, hard R violence is the fact of this violence, whenever you felt somebody getting cut, it was dirty, it was nasty to watch, but it felt perfectly in tune with this world, and it never felt over the top and gratuitous. Babe Ruth said in The Sandlot that heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Well, this was definitely a case where that saying was broken, because we watched a legend die right in front of us in one of the most brutal ways possible. But in a way, him dying was really the only way to continue with his legacy, because seeing Laura tip that cross at the end at his grave and tip it sideways and make it an X, that really was like the best possible way you could have thought of in terms of basically ensuring that this character of Wolverine becomes an even bigger legend than he already was, at least for the purposes of that world. Because in the end, that is what superheroes do. They protect people. They help and save people. They don't punch computer graphics in the face. They don't have the snappy one-liners. It's not for the costume. It's for the saving and protecting people. And that's what made this movie something special. Wolverine didn't go out saving the world. He didn't go out punching a computer graphic. He went out giving his life, trying to save a bunch of kids in this messed up, effed up world that is just going to show that human beings will never change and will always hate and fear what they don't understand. And that is why Logan makes its spot here as my number 1 favorite movie of 2017. Oh man, that took a lot out of me. So that's it. You're probably not going to see this suit again until next year. I'm going to try and make this like a trademark now, though, whenever I do like a big important video. So you might see it again before my best and worst of 2018, but who knows? That is it. I am the Movie Nerd. I'm exhausted because I've just finished recording a big round of videos. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. What were your top 10 favorite movies of the year? Also, click the like button and that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Movie Nerd Review. Head on over to my website, movienerdreviews.com. And also, if you feel like it, follow me on Instagram. As of right now, it's just Dominic Rizzi because I'm still, like, just figuring out how Instagram works and everything like that. But don't worry, you'll probably see some new stuff and changes on there, too. That's it. I will see you guys next time.